Bye, kitty. Well, hi there. Welcome to my rough daily commute between the house and the studio. Well, the half-built studio out in the woods. Yeah, it could use some siding still. Anyway, let's go inside. Okay, so I want to talk to you about a technique today that I'm using in a lot of my music that gives it a lot more clarity, punch, presence, and kind of proximity, and just a lot more power in general. So this technique is also used by a lot of world-class mixing engineers and like A-list producers and stuff like that. This technique is called parallel compression. And the reason I want to show you this is because I'm hoping that if I show you this, then this is something you can take away and use to make your music that much more powerful and present, punchy, all that good stuff. So right now I'm going to play for you a quick example to show you and demonstrate exactly what this technique is doing for my music on my song called Wood that I'm going to be releasing here in the not too distant future. So check this out. Now let me explain to you what's going on, and I'm going to draw it here on a piece of paper. Okay, so this is your sound. Whatever your sound happens to be, it's maybe like a snare drum or whatever. So it's going along kick, 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 okay? So let's imagine that this red pen here is what the limiter is doing to the volume as it's like doing to the gain to the volume as your sounds come in. So you can set it up to really not do anything until your sound comes up to maybe about like this threshold, right? Like right there. So right here, it comes in and jumps down because your sound jumps above that level, and then kind of comes back, and as the sound goes down, what the compressor is doing, the effect that it's having, kind of diminishes and disappears depending on how you set the compressor and how how long you allow it to have to recover from that sharp attack there. Now, what else a compressor can do? You can set it up to function to come in after the attack. So let's say that this is your attack, right? And it happens at this time. Right? Let's imagine that that's the a beat as it goes by. But your compressor can be set to engage milliseconds after that time. So what it's doing then is it's jumping down like a few milliseconds late, basically. And what that results in is, for the first one, your sound kind of, instead of jumping up to this peak like we've got there, it only jumps up part of the way and then kind of levels out, and then as the compressor stops doing its work, the sound goes back to its normal shape. But for this one, because it's attacking, or it's engaging a few milliseconds late, you can set this up to be whatever milliseconds you want, but oftentimes people say 20 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds delayed engagement here. That will allow the percussive attack of this sound to come through really fast like that, and then it will really quickly, within a couple of milliseconds, cut it down. The compressor will engage, and then it will do its thing like that. So what's happening is it's emphasizing the transient. It's emphasizing this powerful click sound at the beginning of whatever your thing is, whatever your sound is. And so this can be really effective to create a more kind of stronger, sharper attack, and it can also be effective to make maybe your kick drum a more punchy, powerful kick drum, while at the same time still keeping it from exploding and being too dominant in your track, because it doesn't have this giant fat sound anymore. It is kind of, for the most part, perceived as a quieter sound, just with a really loud, click attack really up front. So this is kind of what a compressor will do generally, but you can also set up a compressor to only function in a certain area of the frequencies. So let's say, for example, this is a kick drum, right? Or a snare drum or whatever. So your frequencies are here. This is, you know, low hertz, 20, 40 hertz, whatever. This is 15 or 20K hertz. And your frequencies are like, whoa, there's a big one here, and then there's a couple here, and there's a few more here, and then, you know, whatever. So it goes out like that. So your compressor, the compression effect can be set up to only affect your, like, maybe 10K, your 10K frequencies. So you can get your compressor to only work between here. And that's basically what a de-esser is. It's a de-esser only is basically compression that only works in a certain frequency area. Okay? So if you have multiple compressors, you can have them set up in multiple locations so that you only compress the really low frequencies or you only compress the really high frequencies. The thing is that once you send it through one compressor, then you send it to the other compressor, and it's kind of messed up your sound, so it's really crunching your sound a lot. But now what parallel compression is you take your sound, right? This is maybe your signal flow. This is where your sound is going. It's going in here, and then it's going out over here. So this is your main sound direction. This is your, you know, whatever your signal flow is. And then to compress something, you send an out, you route the sound out over here to the compressor. So imagine this is a compressor with some knobs and all that. And then you can route it back in, and then you can go back and forth between, you can mix between the volume of what the compressor is doing and what the original is. And this is compressing alongside the original track, and you mix them, you blend them, what the compressor is doing, how much of the compressor version of the sound you want to hear, right? So you just like volume blending between the two. Now, where it gets really interesting is if you set this up to your 10K, right? That's your 10K compressor. It's only the frequencies around 10, 12, 15K, whatever, the high frequencies. You can at the same time route the same bit of audio to another compressor over here. And this compressor can be doing a completely different thing, a different effect to your, like, maybe 800 hertz. Sorry, this is a fat pen, it's hard to see here. But anyway, so this compressor can be doing a totally different thing to the same original sound than this compressor is doing. And then you can blend them back in so that these are kind of over here, like you get to blend between these two and your original sound. So you get to choose how much of a thing you want. And the truth is, you can continue doing this to more compressors, and then you've ended up you know the upside of doing this is you get to really get controlled attacks and lengths of notes and fatness and brightness and all that kind of thing. You can really do a lot of amazing effective things with it, but the downside is all of this routing. Say you want 4 compressors. You want some really high-end stuff, maybe some 15K, and you want some like low-end stuff like 50 hertz. And then you want some 800 hertz, and you want some 10K hertz. So this is now affecting your air, and if this is your 50 hertz, that's your sub, and if this is your 800 hertz, that's your kind of your knock, or you know the thing they always say is the knock in the bass drum. It's that kind of like caw sound, that good sound, and this is like the click sound. Whereas, you know, the 15K is like the kind of high-ish sound. So you can really affect all these things differently, but you still have to send the signal to every one of these things individually, then send it back and volume level between the different ones that you want, so that you can have, you know, these things affecting your sound. So this is called parallel, right? Because they're next to each other, rather than series compression would be, you know, if you took your, let's imagine a series compression up here, you took your sound and you ran it through a compressor, and then you ran it through another compressor, and then you ran it through another compressor. And I mean, this is another thing you can do, but it then, after you've put it through this compressor, then this compressor only gets that sound, right? So you can't blend between them. You only get that. And then after that, you won't, if you want to have this compressor affect something, you only get the double of already compressed whatever sound it is. So this is the advantage of parallel compression, the fact that you can do all this cool stuff. Now that I've showed you the theory of it, let's go into the computer and I'll show you in practice kind of how it sounds. Okay, so to demonstrate this technique, I've just dropped all the stems from my song Wood into an empty project. So this is not the final mix, these are just the stems all printed out. So let's give you some context here. Alright, so this is the song, this is the intro of the song. Let's take this sound. So this is actually a bunch of pieces of wood that I was hitting and ended up turning into this kind of groove thing. There's a beautiful plugin specifically for this technique called Scheps Parallel Particles, and it works incredibly well. And what this does is it takes the audio, just like I showed on the piece of paper, and splits it up into 4 different components, and then these different compressors are engaged, depending on how much you want to put them in different areas and different ways of your sound. So the way this works is you're supposed to bring up the volume of whatever's going into it till this little light turns yellow up here. And then you can adjust these different compressors to do different things. And you just grab the wheel and turn. This one that says bite on it, as you can tell, it gives it more bite. And this little line here that goes down to the center of this kind of madness shows how much you're putting of this compressor back into the main mix. I'll bypass that. Now this one over here called thick kind of adds lower and slower stuff. This grabs the kind of more meaty frequencies of the sound and accentuates those and tends to kind of give it some more length in the sound, some more body, which is I guess why it's called thick. And now if I bring up both of these together, you can see that they're not acting at the same time. They're doing different things at different times. So this one is like really quick, bright, flashy, and this one's kind of longer, slower. You see that? Also, this one down here called sub, you can apparently change the frequencies of it, and which is pretty cool. And then you can bring this up and it sounds... I don't know if you can... This is like way overdone. I'm just doing this so you can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it on headphones or not, but let me bypass these other two. Off, on. And then this one up here called air are the really high frequencies. And you can see it kind of lasts a while, so it's not quick and sharp like this one. Let me bypass air, bring it back in. Okay, so let me use this to give you an idea of what I would do to this sound to make it sharper and brighter and more punchy, okay? Now using this does compress the audio, which means it sounds louder. You perceive it as louder, even though it doesn't actually change the output level very much. So you can click this little unlink thingy. If you leave these linked, then when you drag the input volume up and down, you can see it changes the output volume. And all of these things are affected by the input volume, by the input level. So you want to have it set right when it goes in. And then you can adjust the output volume if you think it made it too much, too loud. But you like the kind of textural aspects of it, but you don't want it to be just louder than you expected it or than you had it before. So let's listen to it with and without that. Off. On. Off. Now to me, off sounds a little bit more kind of muted and far away, and on sounds a little bit like closer in your face, up front and kind of edgy. Now let's listen to this on a vocal part. 10,000 tears rain down from the... Let's work with that part for just a minute and take just the vocal. 10,000 tears rain down from the sky. 10,000 tears rain down from the sky. 10,000 tears rain down from the sky. For me, it kind of sounds like as though we just took off this little pop filter, or took a sock off of it and just made it really shiny and present. This is before. 10,000 tears. This is after. 10,000 tears. Before. 10,000 tears. After. 10,000 tears.
sky.
Trying to do this with EQ, it doesn't do the same thing. Or trying to do this in other methods, it doesn't really do the same thing. This kind of just, you have control now of a lot of the kind of edginess and attack of the sound, which is really cool. Let's have a listen to what this sounds like if you do it on some drum stuff. And for context, it does actually fit in the same song. Here you go. This is what it sounds like. Okay. Let's see if we can use the same Scheps Parallel Particles to make this a bit more clear, upfront, edgy, that kind of sound. Okay, so I kind of like that sound. Let's hear what it sounds like before and after. This is before. After. Before. After. To me, it just kind of sounds like it took the fluff out of it and made it more real. Well, all right then. That's parallel compression in a nutshell for you. I hope that was useful and informative and will help you make your music better. It's definitely something that I like to use a lot and makes my music a lot better. If you're interested in this particular plugin, the Scheps Parallel Particles, go search for it online. You can find it in a bunch of different places for sale. I think Sweetwater has it downloadable, and it's $30 right now. They're on discount or something like that. And as you can tell, I think, or at least maybe you'll agree with me, the value of this plugin, saving you the time of having to do all that routing, just having it right there. Having it all set up and ready to go in 4 knobs and just make it super easy is way worth more than $30. So I would definitely recommend it. By the way, I am not sponsored. Nobody gave me this for free. I'll be back at you with a bunch of more tips and tricks and techniques and secret things that I do to make my music a lot higher quality that will maybe help you make your music a lot higher quality. Keep an eye out for future videos. Oh, and by the way, this song Wood, there is not an exact release date yet, but keep an ear out for it, because if you liked this, this will be the first release of the stuff that I've been working on for the last like 4 or 5 months. Anyway, okay, talk to you later. Bye! Okay, you know, what are those scenes at the end of movies where they always have more information at the end for the people that just want to stick around and watch? Check it out. This is my ceiling that we just put in a few days ago. These seams that are right here between the pieces of wood, those are going to be covered with beams, big fat wooden beams. As you can see, the walls are not really, they're kind of still rough. We're going to end up putting a bunch of insulation over here, and pretty soon, we just ordered the cabinets to make the desk and everything over here. So fun future updates for the studio. Yeah. Okay, now really, peace out. See y'all later.